Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, loud as ever. Then again, would you expect anything else? George and I just launched our first Motor City Mad Mouth show, and now we have our signature show, the Sports Exchange. Boy, we have a really, really busy agenda tonight. Hope you can stay with us the entire time. And just want to talk about my crew right to left. George Eichhorn, round two tonight.
Yes, good to be back on, Scott.
JB Ellis.
How's it going, guys?
And last but not least, Jacob Christner.
What's going on, everybody? this is the second show, but I'm always happy to be here.
Well, we're always happy to have you guys on, the core four as we have it. And of course, tomorrow, just so you know, we have Pundits Pundit as well. But our show tomorrow night, Pundits Pundit, just a programming note, will start at approximately 9:15 Eastern time. We obviously have other business to attend to prior to that. Normally it's at 8, but circumstances force us to change it once in a while. Tomorrow's one of those. So, well, all right. Busy 24 hours. Headline of the day, unfortunately, we'll talk about a legend, Bob Knight. Dies at the age of 83. Has a career record of 902, 371. He won a gold medal in 1980 for the LA Olympics, 3 national titles, 6th winningest coach all time. Eventually forced out at Indiana when he grabbed an arm of a freshman student, had a zero tolerance policy implemented. And then, of course, he had a notable incident choking a player, Neil Reed, at practice in 1997. That was it. He was done. He coached 29 seasons. But the one thing I'll say about Coach Knight is he always ran a clean program. But that said, George, give me your thoughts about Bob Knight.
Certainly on the court, he was a legend. I mean, no question about it. He had a tremendous, like you said, record, NCAA appearances. But I did have a problem with the way he handled those situations with the young athletes. There's no question that tarnished his record. I mean, again, he piled up the wins and piled up the postseason appearances, and he was admired by a lot of people. I know that. I mean, he was really right at the top of the list when it came to college coaching as far as basketball goes. But I just can't get those incidents out of my mind. You know, it's like Woody Hayes. Woody Hayes tarnished his own image with craziness that he did when he slugged that Clemson player that time in the bowl game. And now Knight with these couple of instances. But, you know, give him his due. Great man, great career, just a couple blemishes, and those are the things that I'll remember most about him.
JB?
Listen, Bobby Knight was a legend. He's a coach that'll never be emulated again because it'll never be allowed. Whether you love him or hate him, that era is gone. I love the man. Did he go too far in certain instances? Yes, unfortunately, but nobody's perfect. I like what he did as a coach. He was a winner. I thought he just brought the best out of his players. I thought he molded them to become better men. Did it work for everybody? Does everyone work best with that type of environment? No. It's like anything in management. So everyone learns differently. Everybody has different styles of what they respond to. And unfortunately, some people don't respond to that type of authoritative coaching. Some people need, a player's coach that's like a buddy to them, but he was a winner. He did nothing but win. He was a legend, and it's a shame. I want to give his family and his friends and former players condolences, and just a shame. He was one of the best.
Jacob?
All I can think about first is he probably got saved being knocked out if he would have messed around with Larry Bird, if Larry Bird would have, because Bird wouldn't have put up with that. Bird would have knocked him out absolutely clean out. But that's just saying, that's just kind of here or there. This was a guy, he is the most polarizing individual we'll ever see in our lives. The screaming, the hollering, some of the ridiculous antics that he did, throwing the chairs. There's other things in the back of the locker rooms, the pistons that he blew regularly. Blew a piston regularly, and you're surprised he didn't have a stroke. All of those every single time. But you know something, he could have gotten their attention in a better way. But he didn't know any other way because he was an Army drill sergeant. And we have to remember those type of deals. And this is from an older day. The men were just built different. They were. But you want to know that I think about, he did win those 3 national titles. I think he got 2 NITs from the earlier years, from like Army and everything. Got one of those CIT titles. He's gotten 11 Big Ten titles. I mean, all-time greats. But one biggest thing about it, 97% graduation rate. Right. The only one that beat him was Pat Summitt because you didn't have WNBA then. Everybody graduated. So it's like graduated everyone. So it's like he's graduating people at a time when a lot of them were thinking of leaving early when they had issues. Remember, this is the 80s and you had drugs. He brought about a bunch of doctors and lawyers. You know, the 12th men, the 10th men, whatever. He made the biggest thing about it is some of them would leave and then become his manager. You know what I'm saying? So these were the big deals of everything. Good for him for what he did there. Polarizing, but just like Mike Ditka will be gone soon. You know, that will be the last. And it's like it's the last of an era. We're going to miss him.
Well, let me point out too, Paulbearbryant was tough. If anybody ever watched that movie, The Junctionboys, that was no picnic. And all Bearbryant did was win championships. One thing I'll say about Bob Knight, never met him, heard a lot of different things about him. Not going to offer opinion one way or the other. His players did graduate. And, you know, Isaiah Thomas, even after his playing days were over, went back and graduated. So ran a clean program, won. And here's the thing that people have to understand. Indiana basketball hasn't been the same since he left. They have not won a national championship. So say what you want about the other coaches that have followed them, but the Indiana Hoosiers have not won a title since Bob Knight left.
Exactly.
Yeah, so put it out there, folks. I've always been a firm believer. If you have an opinion, you back it up, and that's what you do. So rest in peace, Coach Knight. You'll certainly never be forgotten, for sure. I should point out that Sports Exchange being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also like and share and comment about the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a buzz, 954-304-4941. Also, we broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter /X at Tribune South. Candy Ebeling is behind the scenes. And of course, I have a book coming out any day now. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. So I'm really excited about the book. It's taken me about 6 months to go ahead, put it together. Now we're in the home stretch as well. So yeah, Bob.
And it's also brought to you by milk. It does a body good.
There you go. All right. We'll make sure there's definitely a lot of potassium in that. I tell you, this book is loaded with information. The amount of research I put in it will make sure it's a good read, especially as we try to get it out by Thanksgiving and the holiday time. Good point there. All right. Well, another Belichick coach bites the dust. Well, kind of. Okay. The Las Vegas Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, who is now the first coach in NFL history to be fired before the end of his second season by multiple teams. That's the first you don't want to be a part of. He was fired in week 13 during the 2013 season, you know, while in his second season. So I'm talking week 13. And now for second season Denver, he did draft timtebow. And of course, his head coaching record with the Raiders is 20-33 and 337. When is it going to be enough is enough, George, with all these Bill Belichick guys, because they're not working out?
No, they're not. And, you know, I was there. I covered that game Monday night. And I'll tell you what, the Lions had their number. That score should have been a lot larger than it was. You know, Jimmy G didn't have not a good game. He didn't have a good line. It was just a bad effort. And I'll tell you what, Davis's kid that's running that team, he doesn't want to play around with any more of this. He desperately wants a winning combination there in Vegas. And yeah, I mean, you know, these coaching trees are interesting sometimes, and interesting for Belichick in a bad way. You know, a lot of these guys never really panned out, unfortunately. But Detroit went through that when they hired Matt Patricia. So I don't know. I don't even know who's going to pick him up. I mean, yeah, he can always go to be an assistant coach somewhere, but whatever he wants to do, but in that regard. But boy, oh boy, yeah, that did not last long at all. That was a ziggy that I don't think I actually expected it to happen this quickly. But like you said, Scott, he's got a habit of losing jobs, before he completes his second year. But the Raiders, they look bad. They look bad on Monday night, and that was not a shock.
Well, before I turn over to JB Ellis, I want to say the biggest mistake they made was when they let Rich Biscachia go, who had that team spiraling in the right direction, just because they were looking for a name, and they got one, and now look where they're at. Okay, I'll turn over to JB.
Listen, the Raiders are horrible. I mean, Detroit, like George said, could have scored like at least 21 more points, and that's being conservative. They haven't beaten anybody good. The week before they were playing in Chicago, they played Hoyer when they probably weren't going to win that game anyway. And they didn't play Aiden O'Connell, who's the rookie. Why wouldn't you have done that? At this point, what are you playing for? See what you have in the rookie. Jimmy G's not playing anyway. It baffled me why they did that. And I mean, to go to the comment about Belichick, without Brady, what has he done? He was not good in Cleveland. And without Brady in New England, hasn't been that good either. So, take out the Brady years. Belichick's been an average coach.
Yeah, no, great points all the way around. All right, Jacob.
Well, the thing about Belichick, one of the biggest things also is he helped create a system that helped get Brady through. And mind you, he did that, and he won one in Tampa also. But that was a team. That was a team thing to be able to get them. So Belichick deserves his flowers on that also. But at the same time, he's not a good mentor. He's just not. He's not a good mentor for people. I mean, how many coaches have gone through and been horrible? Josh McDaniels started 6-0. He started 6-0 in Denver, and they had all of that issue with Kyle Orton, and then they were 6-0, and then they went 8-8. Then in 2010, it's 1-4 start, and Tebow saves him. You know what I'm saying? Tebow saves his butt, and that's what brings Peyton Manning in. But then after that, he's gone, and then he's gone for 2012. That's it. Kaput. And then he's back 10 years later, 12 years later.
Right.
2 years, gone. This is what needs to be said with someone like him. He used to be a blue chipper. Same with Adam Gase. They become blue chippers because they know how to kiss butt. But when a guy like Arians waited 25 years for his shot, a Bieniemy's waiting for a while, it's right. Because the final interview sessions, they're not doing and they're not saying what the owners want to hear or the front offices want to hear. They don't kiss butt. And that's the big thing with it. It's like you need to look for these guys instead of constantly listening to the guys that know how to do the deal, how to play the game.
All right, let me give a World Series update. Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks.
You guys, do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right. World Series update first. Okay. Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks, no score. Top of the fifth. Man on first 2 outs. I just want to bring up a fact here about the Diamondbacks, and then we'll move on. The preseason World Series odds for Arizona were plus 12,500. They were 26 in MLB. So that's what the Arizona Diamondbacks. So think about it, 26 at 12,500, and here they are. This could be their last game, but you talk about long odds. Another interesting baseball note that I'll get to, and then we'll continue on with our topics. The Braves are the first team to win 100 games of back-to-back seasons and be eliminated by the same team. Don't know if we mentioned that before, but want to make sure that we have this baseball information out there. After all, we don't know how much longer baseball will be played after tonight. So I'll repeat myself one last time. We'll proceed to go further. Again, you're talking about odds. Nobody really has an exact science of this. So 12,500 for the Arizona Diamondbacks, 26th, and they're in the World Series. And again, who would have thought that the Braves would lose to would win 100 games in back-to-back seasons, be eliminated by the same team? We'll talk about the Philadelphia Phillies. All right. With that said, okay, it hadn't been a good year for Philadelphia sports either. So think about it, okay, guys. We talk about George things being a little rough in Detroit for a while because our teams haven't gotten to the playoffs. But in 2023, the 76ers lost in the East semifinals and blew a 3-2 lead. The Phillies lost in the NLCS, as I just mentioned before, and they blew a 3-2 lead. The Eagles lost in the Super Bowl 38-35, and while the Flyers just simply missed the playoffs. So if you're a Philadelphia fan, George Eichhorn, I don't know about the runner-up status, but I don't feel very good.
Well, the one thing is, though, that Detroit did not have, which is, hey, at least we got there, except for the Flyers, of course. And you can't say that in Detroit, but you can say that the Lions obviously are setting this city on fire. And Philadelphia is still a great sports town. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. You know, you guys used to rank the sports cities. I remember on the show when I was on one of your shows, and Philadelphia, obviously, you guys, I agree, it's right up there. They're very vocal. They take their sports so seriously, and they can give you a hard time, boy, if you're a loser. And they've had a lot of losers lately. But I mean, in each one of those cases, I mean, yeah, the game could have gone the other way, or the season could have gone the other way. But I'm telling you, you got to have everything lined up and everything ready to go, and you can't lose that determination and that spirit, and you can't be afraid to make another trade or two to make your team better. And I think that's the case in the Phillies situation. I mean, they're depending on a bunch of sluggers, I know, and they did good, but there was a lot of things that pitching wise they could have done better as far as the Phillies go. Eagles, I think they're going to be right there again this year. Yeah, they lost last year, but I think they're going to be right there again. Sixers, who knows? I mean, they talk about a franchise that hasn't won anything in a zillion years, it seems like, the Sixers. And the Flyers, again, they've been struggling too lately, but it's still a great town, sports. It's still great.
JB?
I don't know. The way I look at it is it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing that your team's got as far as they got up in Philadelphia. Could be like, my hometown, New York, where it's a dumpster fire. The Mets were perennial favorites before the season started and had one of the best managers of the game. The Yankees were a huge disappointment. The Giants and the Jets, do I have to say any more? Everybody knows they're horrible. The Knicks, they had a decent year 2 years ago. They were horrible last year, and who knows what they are this year. The Nets had a great core, and they all won it out. No Hart Durant, which I hope we talk about last night's game later, and if not, I hope I have a rant because I got one for you. Kyrie Irving and James Harden, I mean, who's still getting traded. I think he was traded again today and then tomorrow because nobody wants him. Everybody wants to trade for him, and then nobody wants to keep him. So, I mean, let's talk about New York sports. And then St. John's, who finally got Rick Pitino to be a coach. But before that, they had Chris Mullin, who was probably one of the best players that they ever had, come to coach them, and they still can't do anything to get to the NCAA tournament. And with Pitino as the coach, they lost to Pace in the preseason. No coach has ever lost to Pace coaching St. John's. So don't tell me Philadelphia has a bad sports year or a bad couple of years. New York's in the dumpster right now.
Well, if that's a rant, you did a good job.
Yeah.
If we have time for another one, I'll be more than happy to let you rant again, JV. This is you take as much ownership of this show as we do. All right, JB, before I lose it. I mean, JB. All right, you did lose it. All right, JC, before I lose it. There you go. And you know what? I'm drinking iced tea tonight, so don't worry about it. Go ahead, Jacob.
Let me say this. George, when you said the name losers, I kept thinking you were talking about Philadelphia fans, which there's a lot of them. I mean, the drive. Okay, we've had such a bad year. Yeah, you're always near something. When you're always near, eventually you're getting over it. But see, when they have this thought process of constantly saying, "Oh, but we have high expectations, derp. We have high expectations, derp." When you constantly do this, you know what you do? You run Charlie Manuel out after 2 World Series appearances and 1 title. You run him out. You're probably going to run Rob Thorson out. The way you act. This is why I get mad at Philadelphia fans. Yes, you can have your passion. You can have everything. But this big thing whatsoever. Oh, we just were winners. You had a winner and then you run them out because you are delusional. You don't use nuance. This is the thing. If Rocky Balboa existed, you'd run him out after his first loss to Clubber Lang. You wouldn't have given this thing. This is what Philadelphia fans do. I'm not even talking about the Santa Claus thing. Personally, that Santa Claus sucked. I mean, they deserve to throw the snowballs on that. I'm not even worried about that. I'm just talking about they booed Mike Schmidt over and over and over and over and over again. They booed him and he stuck it around. And then all of a sudden he's their hero for 17 years. BS. It's like they're not having an issue. Think of Chicago. Try thinking of that for just 1 second. Cubs, they're all right getting there. Bears are miserable. Bulls, they're mediocre. They're mediocre. And then the Bulls fans want to run out Billy Donovan. They had to deal with Jim Boylan. So don't get me started on those fans with that. Blackhawks, they've got Bedard, but how long will that take? Chicago's got a miserable time. Try dealing with that. And then the same with Pittsburgh. Some of them are trying to run Mike Tomlin out of town. And it's like, just because he's had some trouble with playoffs, it can always get worse, people. You don't use nuance with anything. Nuance is basically using 2 + 2. Period. And it's time to start understanding that. Act like adults.
All right. The only thing I'll say about Philadelphia sports is, number one, I am pulling for Bryceharper to win a World Series ring before his career is up. I really, really am. He's a guy that can relate to any era of baseball. Number two, I have a feeling at some point or another, don't know when, okay, that John Tortorella will ultimately figure it out. Don't understand why they got rid of Dave Haxtell, because look what he's done with the Seattle Kraken. He's got them turned around in a short period of time. So we'll see. Philadelphia fans, they show up in numbers. But, yeah, if they're going to boo Mike Schmidt and give Santa Claus a hard time. And I will say one thing about that. I don't know if you guys heard the story before or not, but many years ago in Clearwater, Florida, at Jack Russell Stadium, I was thinking about doing something on Steve Carlton, but, I knew he wasn't going to cooperate. I went over and got Von Hayes because some Philadelphia fans started giving him a hard time. And one of the fans said, 6 for 1, you better show what you're all about or whatever. They were really getting on this guy. And right then and there, the young journalist inside of me said, you know what? Who needs Steve Carlton? I got Von Hayes. And he was great, man. One of my favorite interviews. 6 for 1 was better than the one I went after. My goodness. All right.
Every time I see a Philadelphia fan, I'm thinking unemployed. I mean, it's just, but the thing I get at it, I don't mind them wanting to win. That's awesome. I want the passion. I want that passion with the Bears fans because a lot of them are just looking to be cool.
Hey, Jacob, don't ruin a good story.
Yeah. But I'm glad for you for Von Hayes on that. I am.
Yeah,
but that's my thing with Philly fans.
Yeah.
Don't ruin a good story. I know I still have a little teaching with you to do, but don't ruin a good story if you ever have any hope for being a journalist. Hope. Don't be a dope. I wonder where you heard that before. All right. Well, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time because if I didn't care, I wouldn't coach.
I know.
I'm a whole lot easier than Coach Knight.
No hope with dope.
Yeah, there you go. We come up with one-liners here, caffeine or no caffeine. It doesn't make a lick of difference anyway. All right. We'll take this show milk. We'll take this show to a different level here called Iowa. And I think one of the amazing stories that hit my desk recently was Caitlinclark season debut in Iowa, where she had a triple-double in front of 55,646. That is pretty cool stuff, right, George?
Yeah, it sure is. You sure that wasn't a volleyball game in Nebraska you're talking about? Remember that? Remember that discussion? Oh, what a tremendous thing. What a tremendous boost for Iowa. That was great. I mean, really, it's what are those, the old saying, podunk Iowa, or no, is that podunk somewhere else? Right. When you talk about way in the sticks, and that's Iowa. But I'll tell you what, yeah, they really, really packed them in. That was fantastic. I like to see those kinds of things. I mean, we had 100,000 plus for a hockey game, as you guys know, in Ann Arbor, when the Toronto Maple Leaf visited the Detroit Red Wings back in the day on New Year's Day. And George got sick and he had to eat his press pass. You know how much that hurt me? Big time right here. I missed that game.
Sorry for you. But remember, we're not talking
heartburn.
Detroit. We're talking Caitlinclark. Okay.
Caitlin, okay, stay on topic, Icorn. Iowa, good job, Caitlin. Good job, and good job for all the fans that came out. That's wonderful.
Why do I feel I'm going to get a new nickname on this show called the Policeman? That seems to be a tag that seems to be hitting me
We
every
won't call
show.
you the we won't call you the
We'll call
general.
you Rent-A-Cop.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, George? Next time I'm going to tattoo the state of Michigan right on top of your forehead, okay? Because you don't seem to get it out of your system when we have a show called Fire Up Michigan for it. Not every show you appear on. All right, JB, give me a little insight about Caitlinclark because Icorn couldn't do it.
So why is the Big Ten the only conference that cares about women's sports enough to create these events? You know, why doesn't the dissolving pack, whatever number they are, you know, the Big 12, the SEC, you know, why don't just one of them try something? You know, you got Iowa that did it with Caitlin. You got Nebraska, which did it with the volleyball. You know, I think it's great to get women's sports out there. Great for Caitlin to have a triple-double, get in front of everybody. I'm sure she was fired up seeing that many people, you know, there rooting for the team. And I think, you know, the other conferences and leagues should find ways to increase the viewership and the fans in the stadium, because everyone loves an event like this. There's not a bad thing to be said about it.
Well, think about the Big Ten, though, JB. I mean, everybody copies them anyways. They have their own network. Everybody followed them. When they started instant replay, everybody followed them. So let's face the reality. The Big Ten leads everything, and everybody ultimately comes around. So I'm with you. I think your point is 100% accurate. But, you know, this is a followers type of industry, right? Or everybody copies each other. You know, I could sit here and give a Detroit moment, and I will in one particular instance, even though I won't let Icorn do it because he's already shot his limit anyways. But many years ago, when the two tight end system was incorporated, they had David Hill and Charlie Sanders. All of a sudden, the Cowboys used it. Everybody else started following suit when you had two tight ends, and all of a sudden becomes popular. The shotgun, the same thing. If there's a good idea, everybody's going to copy it. But no, JB, you're 100% right. I mean, they got it right in Iowa. You have Caitlinclark out there. It's 55,646. How many people live in this state of Iowa, let alone show up at the game? My goodness. All right, I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, about Caitlinclark, when there was those people that were worried that Angel Reese was taking her power, or taking her deal by doing this, you know, like with the ring finger and everything, that was taking her. What's the word for it? I'm just trying to say. Anyway, taking all of her press. We'll just say it that way. And I was like, nah, don't worry about anything. I let Angel Reese have her time. Caitlin's about to get hers. Caitlin is now on with an NIL. She is with State Farm. She's with State Farm now. She's going to get it nationally, and I knew that would exactly happen. And I'll say this, JB. Being someone from the Midwest, I get it. Why is it the B1G doing this and not too many others? What else is there to do in Nebraska but corn? What else is there to do in Iowa but corn? You have this chance to go to a 55,000 seat stadium and watch basketball, and you get to do all that stuff in the cold weather, mind you, and you're able to do it and watch volleyball. You do it because there aren't a whole lot of professional teams in these areas outside of maybe the Iowa Cubs, you know, getting all that kind of stuff like minor leaguers. So the Hawkeyes are their thing. So when you get this opportunity, and Caitlinclark is a star, you go with it, period.
Well, Jacob, if you've ever been to Iowa before, I would encourage you to go to the Field of Dreams movie site. It's a pretty cool place. So
been to Iowa about 100 times. Never been there, though.
Yeah, well, no, we were there at Dyersville, Iowa. It's a really cool place, and I think Frank Thomas is
Iowa Cubs.
Yeah, I know.
Iowa Cubs is a great stadium, great people.
Yeah, did you do an event there before? I think you told me you went there one time.
Yes, yeah, we did.
It was kind of a bomb
because
it was kind of a bomb because of the storm.
Well, if the show was a success, the game was unfortunately only a few innings because of the weather. Yeah. But it was fun. Great people. The front office in Iowa, they do a great job.
Well, I know that they have a rich history with the Iowa Cubs and the Chicago Cubs, but the Field of Dreams site is really good. I look forward to going back there when they fix it up. Another really important topic related to our industry that I want to really get to is this: ESPN's profits plunge 20% as uncertainty rises. According to Outkick the Coverage, Disney revealed the size of ESPN's business for the first time in a regulatory filing. The company reported that profits for the sports segment, a bundle of ESPN television channels, and ESPN Plus, declined by 20% in the first 9 months of the fiscal year, down to $1.48 billion. Sales also decreased by 1.3% to $13.2 billion. You know what? I'm going to lead off with JB. Okay, this time I have my reasons why. I know, JB, we're working on a lot of projects together, but give me your thoughts about what you think is going on over at ESPN.
The lack of leadership. Their direction that they're going in. You could say ESPN and the regional sports networks fought and drove up the price of carrying sports, which costs them more money because they show more sports than almost anybody else. That's the first thing. Secondly, the lack of talent, the way that they've treated their older people that have been there. And by older, I mean more experienced, not necessarily age, because age doesn't make a difference in this. But, they let people go that have been there a long time. They don't, they have a narrative that they're pushing and, a political narrative nonetheless too, which doesn't make sense because it's sports. Sports can intertwine in politics, but the way ESPN does it, it's a little different. They have a narrative that they want to push rather than, like, for example, Colin Kaepernick. That would be an example of where you have to talk politics because it's there, it's involved in the game. But as a host on ESPN, there's no reason to have political views. You're there to report about the game. You're not there to give your views about anything else. I turn on ESPN to escape everything else and watch sports. And their narrative is one-sided, and a lot of people don't like that, unfortunately, whether it be wrong or right. When I turn on ESPN, I want to watch sports. I don't care what, whose political opinion or anything like that. Secondly, you have jokers like Stephen A. Smith that say the stupidest stuff in the world.
Right.
And I used to love Stephen A. He started in Philadelphia or New York. He worked his way up. How he's become an obnoxious thing, and it's a shame because he's such a talented individual. But that's part of it. It's an encompassing problem, and it all stems from lack of upper management with vision, because there's no vision of what they want. They want to lead a certain way. They want everything going this way, but then don't say something too much, and then if you're there too long, and we'll just get rid of you because you cost too much, but you're good at what you do. Just horrible management. Stick to sports.
Right.
That's what people watch you for.
Okay, George.
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up very, very well there, JB. Yeah, all the movement, all the shuffling of the deck and popular names that people had come accustomed to watching and hearing commentary from, too many changes at once. No question about that as far as all the layoffs that they've incurred. And I understand, when you're losing money, you're going to start laying people off. But that I think that really hurt as far as their prestige goes when they started dumping salaries. And there's so much competition, guys. There's so many things out there, and the live streaming, and there's so many movies and TV channels out, and there's so much entertainment dollar out there that's up for grabs that a lot of people are just not sitting and watching sports like maybe they used to on the weekends. And I mean, I heard the numbers from Fox too. They've been terrible for this World Series. Arizona, especially being in there, but and again, it's not their fault. They deserve to be there, but the ratings have been just really low on Fox. But you're right. Upper management and leadership is so important, and they seem to be lacking that. And, they were such a leader, ESPN, for so many years when I was younger. and year after year, but now they just lost that vision, like you said, JB. And I really think it's coming to fruition. And like I said, plus dumping all these guys and ladies that really were, the ones that helped build it was bad. It really was. And that's what I think really hurts them right now.
Jacob?
I can tell you exactly what hurts. It's the fact that, let's just say, they did not do anything politically or anything narrative driven in the 90s. But if they would have done it, they still would have had the audience because they were the only one in town. But now, with people tired of all of this, you get Outkick. It starts. You get Barstool for the meatheads. You get a bunch of us starting networks like Sideline, South Florida Tribune. We start all of this. And then another big thing is when ESPN got rid of the actual magazine thing, like Outside the Lines, you get the pundit's pundit.
Right.
And it's like you get these. And it's like people just want to have an idea of, if they're going to have something that is important, they want to have debate, not one-sided. Right. And then, but what ESPN became is just like professional wrestling. You get someone like Kendrick Perkins. You always did that. You get that. Yeah, and then you get Stephen A. About 5'3", tries to look like he's this modern day George Jefferson. He's not necessarily great looking. He had to work his tail off, and he had to fake a swag before he actually had swag. He's the modern day version. And that's just what he is. And then Stephen A. got to that thing. But people get tired of him because he's a hard worker. You brought it up yourself, JB. Very hard worker, worked his way up, very, very, very talented. But he's living off the gimmick instead of trying to get he does so many shows and he works so hard, but he lives off the gimmick. The only time he's his real self is on his podcast.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about Stephen A. Smith, and I like that characterization, the modern day version of George Jefferson. I do like to listen a lot to what you guys have to say. I learned a lot just by listening to my panel. That's really good stuff. Well, but let me finish, okay? No, that's a good characterization. The only thing I'll say about this, because I want to be conscious of time as well, is bobley's and chrisbermans do not grow on trees. And they were the ones that started this network many years ago. And I had the good fortune of spending time with bobley. And to me, when you mention Outside the Lines, I used to watch the sports reporters and Outside the Lines every time on Sunday. If there's a show I can learn, the only two people left there that resemble journalists are Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, for pardon the interruption. And they're the only ones that on that network acknowledged Chuck Hughes' death while none of them knew what was going on. And George and I had a show with Jerome Jerenovich, and he told us why. Because they pay all these kids here that aren't research people, and that's why they blew it there. But I just want to make sure that, chrisbermans and bobley's don't grow on trees. If you want to continue your thought, Jacob, go ahead.
Well, yeah, you brought up the kids. I'll just say this before I go to the final part. The thing about the kids is I'll get on Twitter and there'll be a little political thing, and say it's hypothetically Hillary Clinton or something, say something that is obviously wrong, which she would not say because she's a policy wonk. Which is that when the policy people that are there, they would know the facts. I always say on the thing, I'll put a little post up there and I'll say, watch your 20-year-old interns. Start firing your 20-year-old interns because that's not what you would say. Then it's like an ESPN's got those same exact types.
Right.
And that's but the thing when I say that about George Jefferson, it's a respect thing, but also it is a little bitty man. Not going to say black man, not going to because it is, but we're going to make men here. Men, we're not going to do the melanin deal here.
Right.
It's a little bitty man who builds on talent, but he's not exceptionally good looking, but he had to fake a certain swag to get himself somewhere until he made it. And that's why I call him the modern day George Jefferson, is because he faked it a ton and built it.
Well, like I said, I think it's a very interesting comparison, and I'm going to leave it at that and give you the final word so you can quit while you're ahead on this one. Okay. Let me give you a chance to quit while you're ahead. Okay. With that said, let's go to Sports Business Journal. They talk about Cleveland Browns' Myles Garrett has purchased a minority stake in the Cleveland Cavaliers. The 27-year-old will serve as a brand ambassador. Garrett is the highest profile person to join the Cavs as a minority owner since the singer Usher purchased a small stake in the team in 2005. Let me tell you something. When the Browns drafted Garrett, he said, if you don't draft me, you're going to regret it. They drafted him, and they haven't regretted it. So, George Eichhorn, we have a two versions here. You got Garrett, the player for the Browns, and Garrett, the businessman. What do you like from this guy overall?
I like the fact that he's ingenious. This is very good move on his part for looking outside the box and trying to, plan his career after football. I mean, he's still got a lot of football left, but I think that's very, very good for him. Dan Gilbert is owner of that team, and Dan's from Michigan. And I think it's a brilliant move to get somebody like that involved. I do. I like him as a ball player, but I think this one is a real nice move, Scott, because it shows that the player is concerned about what's he going to do after his football days are done. And now he's into a certain management ownership type of thing, which is always good for some of them, not all of them. I mean, Michael Jordan, we've had, Magic Johnson, we've had so many owners of teams, but that's good that the athletes are looking outside the box and trying to do these type of things. So, yeah, I mean, he's a good player, and obviously I look forward to seeing what he can do with the Cavaliers, because Lord knows they could use some help. They've been down, for many, many years, after their buddy left, LeBron. So they need some new, so to speak, new blood and new infusion of youth on that ownership team.
JB?
Genius move by a genius man. Met Myles Garrett in person at the Super Bowl 2 years ago. He was attending one of the events. Met him online. Nicest guy in the world. Great football player. Good to see he's thinking about his future. He obviously loves the city of Cleveland. He wants to be there. That shows that with this move. Nothing but great things to say about him. I'm glad to see that the Cavs ownership brought him in, and I hope he does well. He's great guy.
Well, I think what's nice about Myles Garrett, and we don't see that in pro sports a lot, is you have a guy that figures to start his career and finish it in one place. And Myles Garrett is on a projection to do it. Patrick Mahomes, I know, is on a projection to do it. Ernie Harwell once told me many years ago during spring, and all the millions of times we spoke anyways, that even people like Ty Cobb and a lot of great players don't finish their careers in one spot. Ty Cobb was one that Ernie prominently brought up. We know Tom Brady, and the list goes on and on. But Myles Garrett's different. And I remember that when you look at the Browns, okay, in general, who's the offensive lineman from Wisconsin? Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. But it'll come back to me. But these guys, Cleveland's a good town there. If you retire in a place like that, they're going to revere you. And business opportunities are always available. And I know I'm drawing a blank. It was out of Wisconsin. I'm sure it'll come back to me, but it's not the point. I mean, we go back to our neck of the woods, like in Detroit, how many guys have gone away and then came back for business interest. Miami had the same thing. They become newscasters. And Myles Garrett, to me, is just unbelievable. I hope, to me, that, guys like him, minorities to try to get in positions to be able to own teams, learn the ropes. You never know. So I'll turn it over to Jacob.
How many times do we talk about on Pundit business in sports? I love every ounce of this because he got a minority stake in Cleveland, sure, and the Cavaliers, sure. The Shaq had 4% in the 4% in the Kings. Look where his 4% took him when he sold it, like something like what, 250 million or something. So he got that much back. You look at these kind of guys that think like this. They're going to keep us from having so many broke the athletes after the time is over. Just this kind of education that you can have alone. And then you have the Patrick Mahomes. How many does he own? How much things does he own? He even has the women's soccer club that his wife actually runs. He's got that too, and he wants to get into an NFL. We talked about that on there. He wants to get into an NFL team. It's like, this is the world that we are in, and I want to see these men and women both you start doing this, and the athletes, and change the world so we don't have any other 30 for 30 broke.
And by the way, not to interrupt you, but Joe Thomas is the one I'm referring to. So
Okay.
yeah, Joe Thomas, we all know that he didn't go to the NFL draft. He was drafted on his fishing boat with his dad. That shows you kind of a player he is. There was no way that this show was going to be done until I came up with Joe Thomas. So thankfully it was sooner instead of later. I have a hard enough time sleeping as it is. The last thing I want to do.
You come up with the Joe Thomas, I'll come up with Frank Reynolds.
Let me tell you what, I'm glad you brought Frank Reynolds up, because I tell you what, thanks a lot. No, this is really a sincere thank you. I do mention Frank Reynolds a lot in my book, Lessons from the Microphone. And I'll tell you what, again, I know that it's a good educational tool, but Frank Reynolds, under adverse circumstances, said, we don't want it versed, we want it right. And I know the one thing I've been able to really, that Jacob has really been able to grasp very well, is, I don't know how much you knew about Frank Reynolds before you knew me, but I know you know a whole lot more about him now, because he's a premise of what that book is really about. He really is. But, it's just about athletes, and again, it's safe to say, JV, I know you've done a really marvelous job on LinkedIn. I know you're on there all the time, like I am. George is on to a certain extent. Jacob, I don't know what your involvement is with LinkedIn, but I don't know. What's that?
I got one. I got LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're active on it, great. If you're not, at least you have one. But the point is, you'd be surprised how many athletes you can come across and what they've done after their playing careers, which I think is, to me, just as important as they have on there. I think the one guy that's always been my favorite is Barry Foote, the former Major League Baseball catcher that I've had on from time to time. But yeah, I mean, Myles Garrett's a great story. And JB, I'm glad that you had an opportunity to meet this guy. I mean,
what an absolute great guy. I mean, literally stood there out in public, not at one of the events, not on Radio Row, middle of a line, just, where he had to be himself. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know I was in media. We just had a conversation, just genuinely nice man, so I really have nothing but great things to say about him.
Well, how do you not cheer for a guy like this?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. We're really well tonight. We have one more topic, and then JB, you might get your opportunity to do another rant. How do you like that? Okay. Saudi Arabia will host the 2034 FIFA World Cup. I don't know why I think I should start off with Jacob on this, but for some reason, a little birdie is telling me to tell him.
I brought the thing in. I saw icons on eye rolls, so I could see that. I understood. But Saudi Arabia, the biggest thing that we're seeing, someone made this up the other day. It's like the 3 of the last 4 World Cups have been in areas that are the LGBTQ not friendly whatsoever, like throw you off the roof level, and they are going to get those. So it's those type of things. So think that whatsoever. That is FIFA's answer to everybody asking the thing as how are they? Because remember, in one case, FIFA will literally give a red card to a team if they say, if they say some ridiculous things, the slurs and all that kind of stuff. They'll give you the team a red card, and then they'll disqualify them if the fans get out of control like that. So in one case, they've got that down, which is good. In the other case, they're bringing it to these countries that just do not care. It's all money in the end. This is what I always bring out, like Saudi Arabia and the Qatar and any of these and any of these Middle Eastern countries. It's all the money. And so when everybody talks about, it's like, oh, we're going to have peace in this world. It's not there. And then there is so much irony and there's so much hypocrisy that's in the middle of this when it comes to when they bring it to our country and we're supposed to be the leaders of everything. There's 192 countries in this world. We need to pay attention to everybody. So it's like, quit blasting us. Quit blasting all over us. Everybody in the world is going to do the best they can with trying, being better to ourselves. But if Saudi Arabia is going to get the World Cup, it's showing FIFA just does not care. no matter what they do with the red cards. It's just, who cares? Who cares what they're saying with that? It just means you can't do it. They just means you can't do it on the surface, but they don't mind what you're thinking behind the scenes.
Turn over JB.
Listen, this is an interesting thing with FIFA. They're picking countries that are well funded financially. I'm sure there's something to do with that. FIFA has traditionally been an organization that has been run based on money. There's been people that have done things corrupt. Doesn't mean that they are right now, but gotta wonder about that. And Jacob made a great point with the LGBTQ with the it's important they give cards for it. They have teams that can't have fans because of certain things, and then you have a country that doesn't necessarily have the same beliefs, and you'll allow them to have the biggest event in soccer. So I don't know. It seems like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, and it's a little confusing to where they really stand.
Okay, George.
Well, listen, as you guys know, I mean, there's a whole process that leads up to this. Okay, it's called the bidding and the selection committee, and you know what? Like you said, JB, there's been slime and stuff that they've uncovered for many, many years about the governing stuff in soccer, and nothing surprises me. But I don't like this move. I mean, I just don't think that, first of all, we got a very unsettled Middle East. And I know it's years and years away. I'm sorry. I know. I get it. It's years and years away. And I know they got a lot of money in that kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But I don't like it because, it was just in Qatar, and I just think they should have gone somewhere else. But again, from what I heard, the other countries that were interested was Australia, one of them, I thought, but they ended up pulling out. So what's happening, guys, with these big events is it's costing so much money. The Olympics is another one, and they're not getting as many countries that they used to bid on these big events because these astronomical costs and television rights they got to pay, etc. But for that purpose, that's just one part of it. But like I says, I don't think that Saudi Arabia, with everything going on in the world today, was the best pick. But money talks, and obviously, like you guys said, I mean, there's a lot of big spending going on in that part of the Middle East, and they want it, I guess you could say, fair and square. We think. We don't know all the details, but I wish it was somewhere else. That's just my heart.
The only thing I'll add to it, then I want to be able to let everybody know where they can get a hold of you, and we'll have one more intro before I call it. Money, obviously, 11 years out. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, that's the only thing. And let's not forget that Saudi Arabia is behind the Live tournament as well. So, they have their money tiled up in that. And it's as far as I want to go. All right, JB, you said you had an extra rant. You want to get another one off your chest? Go ahead.
I don't know if anybody saw the end of the Phoenix San Antonio game last night. Kevin Durant, the Suns are up 3. Kevin Durant does nothing when they shoot. When the Spurs took a shot, he just stood there like a statue, didn't box out, didn't go for the rebound. Spurs got the rebound, get an easy dunk, down 1. Inbound pass goes to Durant. He gets trapped in the corner. Instead of passing the ball, calling timeout, doing what any normal person would do, playing basketball for as many years as he has, ball gets stolen from him quite quickly. He looks like the biggest, I'm not going to use words, but Kevin Durant, glad you left Brooklyn. Can't win without Steph. You're not a winner. You have all that talent, but yet wasted career. Thanks. I want you to send Steph Curry a thank you letter. Send Steve Kerr a thank you letter. Send everybody that played with you in Golden State a thank you letter, because they're the reason you got a championship. Because you're not a leader. You're a great guy. You're a nice individual. A little thin-skinned, but glad you left Brooklyn. You're not from Brooklyn. You're not one of us. Be gone.
Okay. All right. One more time here in case you're just joining us. Let everybody know the Sports Exchange is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter, X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. My book, media book, Lessons from the Microphone, will be coming out any day now. Hopefully, once we get past the review stages, and Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. All right, you guys have a quick opportunity to let everybody know before we call it a night. George, very quickly.
Yeah, the book is still out. My book, Detroit Sports Broadcast, is on the air. You can find a link to purchase the book at the end of my column. I write for the Motor City Tribune, which is under the South Florida Tribune banner. And also, you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on LinkedIn under my name, or else on Twitter at SanGSports99. Thank you.
All right, Jacob Christner, Cliff Notes version.
Jake the Pundit on the Twitter, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, Jake the Pundit on all the social medias. I also write on Substack, Ricochet, bunch of different things. I've also got all the shows on South Florida Tribune and on Sideline Sports.
Yeah, that's one of your better acts. Okay, go ahead, JB. Finish it off.
Sideline Sports every Tuesday night, 8:30. Airs on WDJY 99.1 in Atlanta. 7-8 Wednesdays. The NFL pregame show also on WDJY 99.1. Sunday, 12 to 1. Make sure you're watching. NFL Alumni Media. And Sideline Sports, we got shows 7 days a week, so make sure you're watching them all. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, Scott, George, JB, Jacob, see you next week.